Hello, everyone, and welcome to So Ill Unity Coalition's 2021 Carbondale City Council Candidate Forum. Thank you so much for attending tonight. My name is Chastity Mays, and I'm just going to go over a few things before we start. Election Day is April 6th, and early voting starts on March 22nd. Please make sure you get out to vote. We will all be able to vote for 3 candidates for City Council, and those elected will serve a 4-year term. Just a few housekeeping tips before we jump in. Please make sure you use the chat function for any comments that you have. And also raise your hand if you're having any technical difficulties. So let's get started. Our participating candidates are, we have Jessica Bradshaw, Nathan Colombo, Jeff Doherty, Carolyn Harvey, Melvin Pepper Holder, Ginger Rye Sanders, and Nicholas Smaligo. We will begin tonight with candidate introductions, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. After introductions, we will begin questions that you posed upon registration. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. We may end up giving the candidates a little longer than that. We have a timekeeper, so we're already on that. We will then conclude the evening with 2-minute candidate closing statements from each candidate. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jessica Bradshaw first. Jessica, you have 90 seconds for your introduction.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. For those who don't know me, my name's Jessica Bradshaw, and I have been on the City Council for 8 years now. I like to kind of joke that I first became involved in local politics when I was a conservation cat at Lincoln Junior High School. Right now, I work as an office administrator at SIU, and in May, I will be graduating with my master's in public administration from SIU. When I look over the list of organizational sponsors and presenters tonight, as well as my fellow candidates and those presenting from the organizations tonight, I am so proud of our community and our home. Even 1 year into a pandemic, we still come together for community discussions to help educate, to help feed or clothe or house those who are less fortunate. I know this will be a close race, but I just want to start off by giving everyone here a pat on the back for being and staying involved and for caring about our community. This has been a really tough year, but seeing all of you, even if it's virtual, is really nice. So thank you everyone for coming, for watching, and for spreading the word about our local elections. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Next up, we have Nathan Colombo. Nathan, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. And I want to echo a little bit of what Jessica just said in saying that this race is going to be a close race, but not just for the point of the votes that are tallied, but the closeness of the people that are actually involved in this race and the community that we're all working to build right now in Carbondale, understanding both our historical deficits and what we can truly build in the future moving forward. I'm excited for this forum because it's an opportunity to speak extemporaneously just on topics that come from our fellow citizens in and around Carbondale. For me, it is a comfortable space to be in. I appreciate this opportunity to just work through these issues and try and find answers in the conversation, because that's what all of us are trying to do. We're not just coming here to tell you that we are all here to solve a problem for you. We are coming here to engage you in the conversation of policy making to solve the problems that affect our everyday lives, to build on the community that we already have in place here. And I want to encourage you to vote for me, because I think I'm one of the folks that can work with any number of folks that are either on the council, on this docket of candidates, or you out there in the community that I'm already connected with, whether it's somebody that I've had an opportunity to act with online in a customer service space, or somebody that I've gotten to engage with on the streets, just person to person. I appreciate the relationships that we've established, especially for me being a lifelong and generational resident of Carbondale. And I look forward to connecting with you as a city council person. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Nathan. Next up, we have Jeff Doherty.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Doherty, current member of the Carbondale City Council, and I'm running for re-election to the council. I came to Carbondale in 1971 as a college freshman to attend SIU. I received 2 degrees from SIU, a bachelor's in administration of justice and a master's in public administration. It was part of the master's of public administration program that I did an internship with the city of Carbondale, and that started a 32-year career for me with the city. I held positions in community development, railroad relocation project, human resources, deputy city manager, and then I served as city manager for 16 years. In 2008, I took my retirement from the city, and subsequently I became the executive director of Jackson Growth Alliance, which is a countywide economic development organization. I resigned from that position in 2017 when I was elected to the Carbondale City Council. I'm a 50-year resident of Carbondale and have been married to my wife, Barbara, for 40 years. She was born and raised in Carbondale. We have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. I believe in public service, as is evident with my career, and I believe in good, honest government representing all citizens and working for the betterment of the Carbondale community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Carolyn Harvey. Carolyn, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. I am originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I moved to Carbondale in 1971. I did not come with Jeff Doherty, though. He moved here the same year. I met my husband here. We've been married for 47 years. We have 2 beautiful children, Nija and Jairus. I am retired from SIU, worked there for 38 and a half years. I love Carbondale. I think it's a great place to live. I've bought a home here. I plan on staying in Carbondale for hopefully many more years. I do volunteer with several local organizations, including the Carbondale Warming Center, the Women's Center, Hospice of Southern Illinois, and Southern Illinois Honor Flight, just to name some of them. I ask for you to support me with re-election to the Carbondale City Council. I've been on council for 8 years, and I ask that you support me in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Harvey. Next up, we have Melvin Pepperholder, and you have 90 seconds.
As you said, my name is Melvin Pepperholder, better known as Pepperholder. My family had Holder Moving and Storage and done many things in the Carbondale area. I was raised out of Rock Hill Church, but my first school experience was in the basement of Bethel Church. That was a part of Adams because times were growing and we hadn't quite got there to facilitate school education for various different people throughout the whole community. From that, my parents had a business that took me around the country. I grew up going to church conventions all over the United States, moving people as with the moving company all over the United States. I met very interesting people here and far. And part of that, if you recognize some of the names, there was Reverend Turley, that's Rock Hill, Reverend Archibald Mosley, that's Bethel, and then Thomas School, John Thomas, He was married to my aunt. There's so many other people that should be recognized. The other day I spoke about Burton Bonds, but there's Hugh Muldoon, there's Robert Swanson. There's so many people that needs to be acknowledged who have given to the community over the years and presently. One of the reasons I'm participating in this because I got great grandkids, not just grandkids. And what I've seen other places, I wish that we had here. And for instance, one quick example is the so-called warming center is more or less a homeless thing. And with this homeless idea down there, you have people who've been staying there for a year. When I first talked to Don Monty about that before they established that, what I was trying to say was a homeless center to move on to something else, or where you pair people together in that they would then find ways to find other alternative conditions of home, of housing. So with these experiences that I've seen around the country that I wanted to share and then emphasize once again publicly, the people who could therefore go forth and see that there's something, another alternative or change has got to come.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ginger Rye Sanders.
Ginger, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay, good evening, Carbondale. It is a pleasure to be here with you on this evening in this forum. I am a product of Carbondale, Illinois. I went to school here at the elementary schools, graduated from Carbondale Community High School. I did go to John Logan, and I was on the student senate there and the student trustee at John Logan College. And from there, I worked for the Model Cities program, which I'm very proud of because it gave me experience that I had no idea that I would be using again. And I worked with Norval Haynes, which was the director of citizen participation. And the governing board was Northeast Congress, outstanding woman that all of us know, Margaret Nesbitt. And so, and with being also a member of Rock Hill Baptist Church, Reverend Turley, who is the champion of civil rights, under his tutelage, I learned so much about, even in dark times, to still hope against hope and hope always for a better tomorrow. I am glad to be a part of this forum because I also am founder for Women for Change, where we network with all of the organizations in Carbondale. And I can also emphasize that relationships are very important. And for us to make a change and make good change, it's going to take all of us coming together to make this work. I thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to run for Carbondale City Council 2021 out of this city called Carbondale, Illinois. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our last introduction will be Nicholas Smaligo.
Hi, thank you. 2 years ago, I and many others launched the Carbondale Spring. We pointed out that Carbondale had double the police of the national average and offered a plan to right-size the police and put those resources into building a city that puts ecological, social, and economic challenges of our time front and center. That means adapting to and mitigating climate change, foregrounding compassionate responses to social problems, and creating worker-owned, democratically run businesses to build sustainable and just local economy. Far from simply a criticism of the police, the Carbondale Spring is a different kind of development strategy, one that will move Carbondale toward being the kind of city that the 21st century needs. With many others, I've worked tirelessly over the last 2 years to build the foundation for the Carbondale Springs vision to become a reality. Unfortunately, Instead of interest and action from the city of Carbondale, we've encountered condescension, deflection, and dismissal of the concerns and research done by residents trying to take responsibility for the town they live in. What exactly does a city owe to its residents? And what do residents owe to the city that they inhabit? Some people asked and answered these questions at some point, and their answers are baked into the politics of this town. We are in a time when these questions need to be asked anew, and a new kind of politics in this town needs to emerge from an honest discussion of how we got here and how we are to live together amidst the challenges we have and the even deeper ones to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for those introductions. I'm now going to turn over the questioning to Brennan Canope and Ginger Goals. Brennan will explain the way that we will be handling questions tonight, and I will be monitoring the chat if anybody has any comments. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me. So before I start with the first question, I would like to briefly explain how we will be asking the questions. We will start off with 2 general questions that we will ask of each candidate. After each candidate has a chance to respond, we will move into questions divided by topics. Each candidate will have a chance to respond to 1 question within the topic, within each topic, though these questions will be different. So I will start off with our first question, and I will go in alphabetical order again, and then after that we will be switching the order of who is answering. The first question is, community members have expressed a concern about a lack of accountability and city council member engagement. If you are elected, how do you plan to stay engaged within the community and contribute to an increased level of accountability? Jessica Bradshaw, would you like to respond first?
Yeah, I has been sorry, my dog's right down here. I am very interested in engagement, citizen engagement. You know, I've been kind of guess when I was first elected 8 years ago, I was somewhat disappointed by the lack of interaction that I got when I was first elected, in that I put stuff out on Facebook. I mean, and I realize not everybody uses Facebook, but you know, I wanted more engagement, and I would put out, okay, here's what we're talking about. What do you guys think? I would ask people, you know, for feedback, and I would get 1 or 2 comments, and you know, we would have these huge topics and not very many people would come to council meetings until or unless it was something that people didn't really like, which is understandable. Oh, and it's yellow already. Okay, I'm hoping that with this new internet form that we can have, once we do go back to in-person meetings, we can figure out a way to do both, so that we can have in-person as well as get more feedback through online methods.
Thank you. Nathan Colombo, would you like to respond next?
Yes. Would you mind to ask the question one more time, please?
Of course. The question is, community members have expressed a concern about a lack of accountability and city council member engagement. If you are elected, how do you plan to stay engaged within the community and contribute to an increased level of accountability?
Absolutely. So in a single word, media. That is my professional background, is media and digital platforms. My key focus on that for many years has been bridging the gap between digital spaces and physical spaces, bringing the activity that we participate in online into physical places of action. a very clear representation of that. If you are not already familiar with a Carbondale brand that I've built over the past several years, after being gifted it from other local community members, the WTF Carbondale social media platforms, including Facebook group, are some of the ways that I would absolutely utilize to not just engage folks from a single-sided perspective, bringing myself to individuals, but asking for the feedback directly from those individuals as well. I platform activity of our local citizens to the tune of somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60,000 views in a given month, based off of the Facebook group alone. In terms of other activity that I participate in, the podcast that I've recently launched in the past several months, one that I've actually had all of the candidates that you see here today on to engage with, is something that I would use to actively engage folks in long form conversations about policy issues that they bring directly to City Council following City Council meetings.
Thank you. Next, I will ask Jeff Doherty.
Thank you. One of the things that has really bothered me over the past year, the City Council meeting virtually, not in person, is that it has really hampered citizen participation and citizen involvement during our City Council meetings. It's the process or the platform that we use is very difficult. And when we meet in person, we do our business in open session, and citizens have the opportunity to give input and attend City Council meetings. We live in the community. I'm throughout the community. I'm involved with different groups, different associations, and live in the community every day throughout. And so people have the opportunity to discuss their thoughts and opinions with me. I have a listed phone number. They can call me. Quite honestly, I don't get a lot of people reaching out to me and giving their thoughts and input on a one-on-one basis on issues. I wish they would do that more. Because Carbondale has always prided itself on citizen participation, and it's a very important part of our local government and how we should be operating as a local government to have that citizen input on a regular basis.
Thank you. Carolyn Harvey, would you like to respond next?
Yes, thank you so much. I agree with what Mr. Doherty just said, in that I think meeting virtually impedes the communication there. But Mr. Colombo said he had the response in one word. My one word would be accessibility or accessible. I've always tried to make myself available to the citizens of Carbondale. The email address is on the website. My phone number is 618-303-1973. And I always ask, please call me. As you can see, I'm old and I like talking to people instead of reading emails. So please feel free to contact me at any time. I've said that for each year that I've been on City Council. I am more than willing to listen to everybody's opinion. I think everybody is entitled to their opinion. So please try to contact me. If we as a council have failed in being available to the community, I will apologize for the entire council for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Melvin Pepper Holder, would you like to respond next?
Well, I know that we've been under this virus and how to protect one another and so forth. And as we've grown to be able to do so, there were various opportunities where we could have done a whole lot better as a community leaders if they would allow the democracy to truly work. The city hall conference room is very large, and to space people out safely could have been easily obtained. We have problems that are far greater than just with the, at least longer lasting than the virus. And that is voting in Carbondale. Voting at large has harmed the Black population since its creation. There has not been a truly duly elected person from the Northeast sitting on the council in Carbondale. Murfreesboro has a ward system, Chicago has a ward system, yet Carbondale and this infinite wisdom blocks this process. And that's one of the reasons why should people go vote? Their vote is not heard or not counted or not welcome. So until there's a voting change that addresses people's concerns and the council, the government starts addressing truly the problems of affirmative action, the problems of employment, the problems of housing, these things that matter to people in certain communities, then people feel no hope or no grounds for participation with those people on the council.
Thank you. Ginger Rye Sanders, would you like to respond next? I believe you're muted, Ginger, if you're speaking.
Back in accountability is a very good word. And I just believe that if you're on the city council, you should be accountable to the people. You should be in a position where you are approachable. And if I were on the city council, I would be approachable. I am personable. I'm easy to talk to. And I am a builder of relationships, even as working with the Women for Change. I always call us, we're grassroots girls. We believe in relationships. We believe in building relationships and keeping relationships. We believe in knocking on doors and doing door to door and one flyer at a time, one person at a time, changing things. And so as a city council person, I would be accountable to the citizens of Carbondale to have a dialogue and keep a dialogue open where they could call in and we can chat and talk. I want to hear you. I want to hear what your concerns are and see if there is a way that we can work the concerns out. We may not agree all the time about what we do, but we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I want to be accessible where people can come and talk to me and have confidence that we will come to some solution that will make Carbondale a better place. And that's where you'll find me. You'll find me in a place where I will be accountable to the citizens of Carbondale.
Thank you. Nicholas Smaligo, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you. I want to second something Pepper said about the problem of at-large voting, first of all, but I also think it goes beyond the voting, the criticisms that you're bringing up. I also want to say that people's disengagement from local government is a learned behavior. When people encounter dismissiveness, even in a certain way, a sort of form of like public gaslighting, people learn that it's just not worth it to talk to the city council or go to the city council because there's actually no possibility for a back and forth dialogue to happen in that space. You can't actually get to the truth. At best, you'll speak and then somebody will say, well, somebody will look into that, or I'll call you after or something, but you can't actually get a public conversation happening. And so I think it's very important that we create spaces for those public conversations. I want to give just one example if I can. A number of us, myself included, have been before the city council many, many times arguing that there is a glaring problem with the budget. And when we first did this 2 years ago, the seriousness of our argument, I think, weighed upon people. And they said, we can't do anything about the budget now. The cake is baked, but next year you'll get a chance. Next year came around, we got a single meeting and nothing happened. And then it was pushed off again. And so the problem is for me, that there's no place where people on the city council actually have to take accountability for their beliefs, for why they vote the way that they do. And I think that if we conduct more open city assemblies where people can really have facilitated conversations about the disagreements that exist, then we'll get closer to the truth together. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the second question that will be posed to all candidates. And I'm actually going to go in reverse alphabetical order this time, just so in fairness to all candidates having kind of similar time to prepare their answers. So the second question will be, what is your idea of creating positive contributions to Carbondale during your term, if elected, and how do you plan on doing so? Please be specific. So Nick Smalligo, will go back to you.
Yeah, thanks. My plan is the platform of the Carbondale Spring, which I'm already working on with many people and am going to keep working on whether I'm elected or not. Central to that, and one of the things that I have been personally very involved in, is the Food Autonomy Project. Over the last year, we managed to secure a grant to pay people to work in 3 different gardens run by different organizations, as well as build 12 chicken coops for people. And we want to expand that project this year, but our ultimate goal is to secure city funding for people to grow a sustainable food safety net in this town. Because it's ridiculous that, especially those of us that use food stamps, that we're dependent upon the political winds of Washington to secure our food. And we need to build a healthy food system. And so that's one thing that I think that I would love to work on, devoting funds to growing more gardens and building a food system. But beyond that, I want to pursue a deep re-examination of our concept of public safety in this town. And I have argued and will continue to argue that we are over-policed, we're over-invested in that. And I want to see police funds steered directly into supporting the Irma Hayes Center. And in the Irma Hayes Center, creating a team of what we've called care workers to engage in violence reduction program and rapid mental health response that is not accompanied by police, because it works in many other cities and it does not need to be accompanied by the police. Beyond that, also, I'll just say one more thing, and that is our cooperative business program, which maybe I'll have time to talk about that later. Sorry.
Thank you. Ginger Rye Sanders, we'll turn it over to you. And you are muted.
Me and this mute button. Things that I would like to see done in Carbondale, Illinois. The first thing I would like to see done is that there would be more diversity, more inclusion, more equality and equity in the city of Carbondale. Carbondale is a diverse city with many different nationalities, and we need programs that would put in place where all these individuals will be represented and will have a voice in the city of Carbondale. That is important to me. And that we would hold the city more accountable to have our labor force to reflect the diversity and to reflect the demographics in Carbondale, Illinois. It makes no sense to have 42% minorities and only 7% is represented on the police department. It makes no sense to have 42% minorities and only 19% is represented in the city government. That we need to come together and change some of these things. Even the contracting programs that they have at the city hall. I think that we need to look a little closer at that and to make sure that we have programs in place that will include local hires. And it does not make any sense for us to have contracts making money and the people that live here do not have the opportunity to work. So we need to look at local hires and what we can do to make Carbondale a better place. The other thing that I would look at is community safety reform. And I know that we all have conversations about the safety reform in Carbondale. And safety is a big issue for me. And we want our community safe. We want to have systems in place that will make every segment, every aspect of Carbondale safer. I was talking to a young
Thank
man
you,
on
Ginger. Sorry, I'm
Okay,
going to pause you.
okay.
We're just a little
I'm
over
sorry.
time, but we'll
All
have
right.
a section on
Sorry
safety
about that.
reform
Sorry
as
about that.
well.
Okay.
All right, Melvin Pepperholder. You are muted.
How much time is in this period for a person to speak?
Luke, I believe it's 90 seconds.
Okay.
90 seconds, yes.
Well, there's, I think one of the main things that's taught in school that's missing in the school curriculum is the history of the community, the history of Black people, the history of the United States. We have a major university right here in Carbondale, Southern Illinois, and has the opportunity to bring in people from around the world, people from around the country to come in and speak and deal with the history and the problems that we have. If you would think about it, many people have not, there's two roads that intersect the campus. That's Douglas and Lincoln. Just those two streets say so much. Now, why has these conversations to go better and do better involved here in Carbondale University, stemming out to the grade schools and throughout the community? The history of the labor here is really terrible. Because going back to the copper plant, how people was just so far harmed, and they, first of all, they was recruited. They built places for the people to live, yet still they didn't provide any protection for the people and caused great harm. And the city was complicit in this by having them to come in and then not standing there to support the people in the community. There's so much more. I don't want to have the opportunity to talk about it, but I'm willing to meet you anywhere to discuss it.
Thank you very much. Now we have Carolyn Harvey.
Thank you. I think several of the issues that have been mentioned, including hiring and diversity and inclusion, food, policing, safety, and I'll add to that list homelessness. I think all of these are issues that we need to address. I will be the first person to acknowledge I don't have solutions to all the problems. I'm willing to sit down and listen to anyone who has a problem, and then we can work together to come up with a solution. I can't just say, and also realizing that for anything to pass city council takes 4 votes. I only get 1, even though I try to talk them into giving me more than 1 vote. They won't do that. I only get 1 vote. So listening to the citizens of Carbondale and then speaking with other council members to try to get these problems that we all know exist, trying to get them solved is all I can offer to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Doherty. You can go ahead if you're ready, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Being on the latter end of the list here and responding, a lot of the areas that are important to this community have been mentioned. A few things I want to bring up is jobs, creating jobs for our residents, good paying jobs. They can support themselves and their families and make investments in the community, including housing. And doing this by working with some of the economic development groups, and specifically the Southern Illinois Airport, which is basically an economic growth center where jobs are being created for our citizens. The other part is to invest in our neighborhoods and encourage the rehabilitation of our housing stock and to encourage home ownership. We can do this through our existing first-time home buyers assistance program and the proposed tax increment financing district that the city has initiated with some of our inner core areas, housing areas in the south, west, northeast, and northwest. This will help rehabilitate our neighborhoods and make Carbondale a more livable community. And speaking of that, looking at sustainability, the city has initiated solar power on several of our larger facilities, including City Hall and the police station. And we did this to kind of set the standard for our community, and hopefully other governmental entities will follow suit as well as the private sector.
Thank you. Nathan Colombo?
Our priority as a city needs to be on redeveloping our population. We are a city that's built around a certain number of residents, and we have the infrastructure to support folks. We have the housing stock to support folks. We have the community programs to welcome people here. We have the innovative ideas of folks like Carbondale Spring. We have the long-standing, economic development systems like what Jeff just mentioned, and we have problems to solve, like the issues surrounding diversity and a lack of inclusion, not just in the city, but in our economy overall. So I think right now, as we see people fleeing and being displaced by climate change, whether it's wildfires on the West Coast, flooding on the East Coast, hurricanes in the Gulf Coast, we stand as a place of refuge to welcome people, to help us redevelop our community while we help them stabilize and find what is next in their lives. And I would hope that what they find next is exactly everything that we are discussing in this conversation, in this forum now. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Jessica Bradshaw.
Yeah, the nice thing about going last year is that I can say everyone is right. Everyone had great ideas here. I feel like Nick kicked it off and we've just snowballed all of these ideas into, yes, let's work on sustainable food sources. Let's work on violence reduction, police, more diversity, supporting local, better jobs, housing, everything. I feel like, yeah, everyone has a point, and I think that we can do it. I think one great thing that the city does do is support local agencies and organizations, and there's always a fight, and it's hard to keep that money in the budget, but I think that is one very positive thing that we need to keep doing now more than ever, even though it's harder more than ever with our budget and the pandemic. But I think that is very important. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we just had a snowball of ideas here. I support everyone's points.
Thank you. That concludes the 2 questions that we were going to pose to every candidate. So now we'll move on to our categories. The first category that we have is social services and community safety. So this first question I will pose to Jeff Doherty and Ginger Rye Sanders, and it's about what roles and responsibilities the city will take in the future of the Irma C. Hayes Center. So the question is, what do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of city government presence at the Irma Hayes Center, including police? Do you think that the city of Carbondale should contribute financial support to the center? So we'll start with you, Jeff Doherty.
The Irma C. Hayes Center was owned by the city from the beginning until, I believe, 2010, 2011, when it was transferred to a private organization. And at the time, I was not involved with that. I was not with the city, but I did not support that. I think that the best way the city can participate in the operation of the Irma C. Hayes Center is to have control of it, because it gives it stability from a financial point of view and from an operational point of view. And I think that's really what has suffered for probably the last 10 years, and why we're even discussing it this evening in terms of police presence. I don't support a police substation. I don't support a presence at the Irma C. Hayes Center by the police department. We've had police substations at various locations in the city in the past, and they were really ineffective and quite honestly not used by the police. So they were sitting there empty and just of not much use. So I don't see that being beneficial, but I can see the city playing under the current arrangement a role. When I was city manager, we had our community relations officer with an office in the Irma C. Hayes Center, which worked out quite well in terms of people being accessible to that person in that office, and in a way to the city as a whole. I think really the future of the Hayes Center needs to be a collaborative effort among the various entities in the city, healthcare, education, the city, and others that can put together programs and put them in the Irma C. Hayes Center and serve the community as a whole. We have successful.
Pause you there just because we've gone a little bit over with our time.
Oh, okay, I didn't have mine. Okay. Excuse me.
All right. Same question for you, Ginger Rye Sanders.
Repeat the question again for me so I can make sure that I answer it.
So it's about what roles and responsibilities the city sees with the future of the Irma C. Hayes Center. So what do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of a city government presence at the Irma Hayes Center, including police? Do you think that the city of Carbondale should contribute financial support to the center?
Well, I'm not convinced that the city of Carbondale will support the Irma Hayes Center financially. I believe that some years ago, the Irma Hayes Center was sold to a group of people because the city relinquished their responsibility in dealing with minorities on the northeast side of Carbondale, and they found a better opportunity to send money to SIU Carbondale. So in my opinion, I believe that the Irma Hayes Center is owned by a private organization that's making decisions about what's best for the community. The Irma Hayes Center is a hub for citizens in Carbondale, especially Black citizens. We don't have any historical buildings or anything that we can point to as ours. And the only thing that we do have is the Irma Hayes Center. And there are people there. The president is Bob Wills, trying to build the center and trying to restore the center. And there seems to be concerns about police resource center in the Irma Hayes Center and causing division and keeping the center from being restored like it should. And I just believe that the city of Carbondale needs to come together and work together to get the center restored first. And then we can deal with fighting over a resource center. And I just believe that this place is very important to the growth of our children and our grandchildren. And it's a place where older individuals can remember the essence and the essence and the greatness of the Irma Hayes Center. And so we just want to restore it and bring it back to that place.
Thank you very much, Ginger. Okay, we're going to go to the next question. This will be for Nicholas Smaligo, and if I'm saying your name wrong, please correct us, and Jessica Bradshaw. So the question is, in response to a heightened awareness of policing issues, an increasing number of cities across the country are creating alternative community safety plans. Do you think Carbondale should adopt alternative community safety responses? And if so, how? So we'll start with you, Nicholas.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yes, unequivocally, I do. And this is very close to what really the center of the Carbondale Spring and my work with it. And that is, we started looking at the model created by Cahoots in Eugene, Oregon, which is a tremendously successful rapid response, not just mental health, but also dealing with homeless issues. And it's attached to a clinic over in Eugene, Oregon. So basically, if you engage with people and they need a place to calm down, but you don't want to take them to the emergency room, and you certainly don't want to take them to jail, you can take them to a health clinic where they have a holistic clinic there. And that's the kind of thing that I think that the Irma Hayes Center would be perfect for. But also, over the course of the year, thinking about this and talking with many, many people about this, I think that our concept of what we've called care work needs to be expanded even greater. So we need to talk about how to do community-based violence reduction programs that are oriented with a trauma-informed approach, so that we make sure that every time an incident of violence or shooting happens, that there are trained, culturally sensitive, city-employed people who are there to try to talk with people and process what happened. And there's more to that, but I think it's very, very important that this funding come directly from the police department, because this will make us need less police. In fact, we already have more police than we need, but this will reduce what the police call their calls for service. And so, yeah, I'm happy to discuss this at great length with anybody else. And I have a YouTube video breaking this down in extreme detail. So please check that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Bradshaw?
Yeah, definitely. We need alternatives to policing. I think one thing, the Cahoots program is wonderful. I've looked into it ever since Carbondale Spring mentioned it. It's been going since the 1980s, so it's taken a long time to get there. And ever since Carbondale Spring has brought this up, the city manager has been working with SIH to develop some kind of program. I don't know where that is in terms of development, but I think that it's going somewhere. It's coming, I should say. I don't know what it'll look like, but I think that everyone wants some alternative. Southern Illinois Healthcare, I should say, SIH. We have to keep in mind that poverty is the root cause of a lot of strife in our community. And I think that developing, of course, if we could get this at a living wage at a national level, but at least at a state level, that would be good. And getting better jobs and better, better opportunities for our youth, especially in the community, that would help. But I like what Nick has to say. If maybe he could put the YouTube video link in the chat, that would be wonderful. There's so much there. Oh, I will put a link in the chat too, if I can find it. There was just a wonderful podcast. If you're a lot of my friends and my sister tease me a lot. A lot of my conversations start with, I just heard this podcast. But if I can find it, I'll put that link in there too. There's a lot there, more than I can say in 1 minute, but we definitely need to start working on other methods.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next question. So this is going to be for Carolyn Harvey and Nathan Colombo. What do you think about a program to divert 911 calls, nonviolent 911 calls to social work to a social work or care worker team for mental health and other issues? And how does that relate to our community? So since I stumbled a bit there, I'll repeat it one more time. What do you think about a program to divert 911 calls to a social work or care worker team for mental health and other issues for nonviolent emergency calls? And how does this relate to our community? So we'll start with you, Carolyn.
Thank you. I think that would be, and I'm assuming these calls would go to regular 911 first and then be channeled to an alternate agency. I would not, depending on how it's done, I always hate to say, yes, I would support something before I have specific details. It sounds good, the way it was just presented. So I would say that would be wonderful. Who they would be diverted to would be a concern for me, whether it's Centerstone, SIH, or other agencies. But yes, at this point, I would say it sounds like a very good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll turn it over to you, Nathan Colombo.
Thank you. And I don't think that it's just a pursuable good idea that we could execute, but I think there have been similar iterations of care work, as we now call it in this conversation, but simply, reachable people in the community via phone. This goes back to a conversation that was before my time, if I recall correctly, Chris Wisman talking about that they actually used to have a community care line for folks in Carbondale. What's wonderful about these conversations that we're having now is that they're not necessarily new conversations in terms of whether or not people have looked at something similar before. So yes, we need to look at finding alternate ways to service folks that are experiencing nonviolent issues, specifically related to mental health crises and homelessness, but also, we've talked about two different sides of this service coin in our conversation so far. One being the grassroots effort, and one being the large corporate effort. And I think that we need to make sure that what we put forward as our policy as the city brings both of these together, both the grassroots activity, like what Carbondale Spring is putting together, as well as the corporate strength of organizations like Centerstone and SIH.
Thank you very much. So we'll have the final question for this category on community safety and social services to Melvin Pepper Holder. The question is, former Carbondale Police Chief Jeff Grubbs stated that the police often respond to mental health calls because there are insufficient mental health services in the area. What is your vision for increasing mental health care for our community?
Well, I am not an expert, and I am so glad and even proud that Jeff asked me when they had the first march after George Floyd, what should we do now, Pepper? And I said, go to the university, talk about the history, and find some psychologists and others who can help change and educate and seek a new direction. We have so much talent that's not being used in Southern Illinois, at the university, in the community. All of these issues could pretty well be, if we had guidance and leadership from the city councils, city hall, to put together teams of qualified people, interested people, to study things, to bring it forth, and let's make this place a better place. It's a shame to waste the talent that we have by the politics of denial to others. And that's a whole lot of what's really going on, is one side or two sides trying to suppress another side. I often mention people that I know of in the past. My parents hired a lot of people. That has not been a thing that's going on lately because there's a clear attempt to limit Black business participation, especially in Carbondale. When you don't even include the people to seek their own direction or ask, concern them in their process, you are really failing the whole community. And the health of the community is at stake, which brings about so many problems of going to jail and problems with health. Poverty brings about babies, how they're born, or miscarriage, or low birth weight.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. We're at time there. So I'm going to turn it over to Brennan with our questions about environmental concerns.
Thank you. Yes, so that concludes that section, and our next section of questions, our next topic of questions are environmental concerns. The first question I will pose to Nicholas Smaligo and Melvin Pepperholder. So the first question is, do you support environmental and sustainable initiatives, for example, electronic transportation, for the city of Carbondale? If so, how will you champion these policies while on the council? So Nicholas, would you like to respond first?
Sure, but just to clarify, what do you mean by electronic transportation? Like, what are you thinking of exactly? Like an electric streetcar or something?
That is a good question. Personally, I thought of including electronic trains and public transportation.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
feel free to do it.
So I'll just say on that, like, enormous infrastructure question, I don't at this point have a huge, like a worked out perspective. What I do think is that the conditions of our life today are destroying the conditions for life on the planet. And we need to figure out a new way to live together rapidly, and ecology and an ecological perspective has to be central to every decision that is made in the city. And not just a kind of what's sometimes called neoliberal environmentalism. So I'm not talking about picking up litter, for example. I'm talking about reducing our collective carbon footprint. I'm talking about making sure that we're safeguarding and restoring the soil health of Carbondale and its surrounding, protecting the water, protecting the air, and protecting biodiversity. And this has to be essential and requires also a historical perspective too. We have to recognize the legacy of environmental racism, that the toxic pollution that we've experienced has not been equally distributed. And we have a glaring example of that in the former site of the Koppers Tie Plant on the northeast side, which I've been involved with struggling for justice on for quite some time. So I think that it's very, very important that, well, I have a million things to say about it. And so I just want to say I'm happy to be involved in and even take a leading role in that conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Melvin Pepperholder, would you like to respond to that question?
Yes, the question begs, is Carbondale is an isolated place? Carbondale is not isolated from the rest of Southern Illinois or the rest of the world. So if you looked at just Southern Illinois, how could such a transportation mode be established for those people going back and forth from the St. Louis, East St. Louis area, or those going from Mount Vernon to Carroll area? Now, if you look into those possible electronic ways in that concept, that's a possibility that could be coming soon. For as cars, well, then some tax base may have to be established to give a TIF type thing towards taxi cab and to the bus transportation. But other than that, I'd like to bring back horses. I love to see the horse things in St. Louis and Chicago. Make the community more interesting, whatever you call those things, with people pulling people along in a cart. What can we do to make things better and bring the electricity from the Koppers place and coppers would then bring that electricity to a designated thing of Carbondale for the harm that is done as some retribution to pay for what they've done. That's basically it.
Okay, thank you, Pepper.
You're welcome.
The next question is for the current city council members. So the question is, as a current member on the council, please describe any ways you have advocated to reduce Carbondale's carbon footprint or created more sustainable policies for the city. I'll ask Jessica Bradshaw first.
Sure. Well, we're putting up solar on City Hall and the police station currently, which I know is a small step, but it's a big step. You know, it's something that I'm happy is happening. We also, you know, the mayor, back when Brad Cole was still mayor, signed a climate change pact. And I've always said that, you know, to lower emissions by so much by some year that actually probably has gone past by now. And I've always said that we need to partner with some group at SIU to figure out what our CO2 emissions are currently, and then actually monitor to see if we can lower them over the years. Now, so many years have gone by that, you know, it's kind of, I mean, we might as well start now, but anyways, I think, you know, going solar, and then we have the Greening Carbondale group that's going forward, that will hopefully bring solar and greener emission purchases to those who can't normally put up solar on their homes. We also purchase green power, so that the whole city, well, there's I'm not good with talking about things in 1 minute. This is so hard. But yeah, I think we've done more than I can think about in 1 minute. But the solar panels are definitely very exciting to see those go up recently.
Thank you. Jeff Doherty, would you like to respond to the question next?
Thank you. Yes, I just probably be repeating what Jessica was talking about and repeat what I've said earlier. You know, the city council took a major step in terms of putting solar panels on our police station, on our city hall, on our wastewater sewer plant. And this is, you know, was an effort to, one, have that positive impact on our environment, to be a leader in our community and showing others that it can be done in a very reasonable way. In terms of reducing our footprint, I think that our Sustainability Commission is working on a plan to make recommendations in terms of how we as a city can move forward in reducing our footprint, which I support 100%. We must be a leader in our community and do our part in terms of making and saving our environment.
Thank you. Carolyn Harvey, would you like to respond next?
I don't need to repeat what they've said, so I think they've hit on the high points already.
Okay, thank you. So the next question I will pose to Nathan Colombo and Ginger Rye Sanders. The question is, how do you plan on addressing climate change in your role on the City Council if elected? Nathan, would you like to respond first?
Well, I think that the answer to that is something I've addressed in previous parts of this forum, talking about climate change as an opportunity for Carbondale to act as a place of refuge for folks that are fleeing climate change throughout the country, throughout the world, wherever it may be, where folks are displaced and have what they have to be able to find a safer place to live, whether that be folks who are completely wiped out and have nothing to work from other than the clothes on their back, to the folks who leave their former homes with large insurance checks and the ability to come in and rehab houses. It is something that we need to posture ourselves as a community towards and communicate to communities that are affected and devastated by climate change the world over. As just touching on a little bit more about what sets us apart in terms of building a more climate secure future. The reality is electricity is only one part of that. Carbondale needs to protect its water. It needs to protect the lake. It needs to protect the tributaries that feed the lake. And that's not an immediate policy that only the city council handles by addressing our issues with water infrastructure, but it is part of a larger lobbying and activity effort that we must participate in as a city to ensure that our water is safe, not just delivered through the pipes from the lake, but the water that actually feeds the lake itself.
Thank you. Ginger Rye Sanders, would you like to respond next?
Climate control. I believe that Carbondale has always been a place where people run and escape from the devastations of urban living. We're sitting on one of the best pieces of property, called Little Egypt. And we have so many resources here in town to even deal with climate control. But before I get there, we need to deal with the problem that there is a climate change problem right here in our city. We are sitting on what many have called a sacrificial zone. But my words are getting twisted up. I haven't had anything to eat. But anyhow, a sacrificial zone, and that's out there at Copper Plant. We're sitting on a problem that we need to deal with. And there are chemicals that are still out there that's affecting the people in the northeast side of Carbondale. We have known of these conditions for years and years and years. People have died of cancer, asthma. This condition has caused a low sperm count in males. And so we are turning our faces, and this copper situation is still on the table at the city hall. And I just wonder why. We need to clean up Carbondale first before we start dealing with any other things about climate change. The climate change problem is Copper Plant. And that's where we need to start to clean that up, to get that under control, and help the people that live in close proximity, making sure that they live in a safe environment.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes our environmental concerns section. I will hand it back over to Ginger for the business development and funding priorities topic.
Thank you. And as we near a little bit closer to the end, we're going to try to stay on time with our questions here. So please just remember to check out the timer as you speak. So I'm going to actually take a question from the chat to start this off. And this question will be posed to Carolyn Harvey first, and then Nathan Colombo. The question is, the COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged nearly every aspect of the municipalities across the country. If elected to the council, how should the council help support and uplift our business community? So in regards to COVID-19, if you're elected to the council, how should the council help support and uplift our business community? Carolyn, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I think that there are some things that the council can do, but there are some things the council cannot do. I think having some type of support for local businesses would be in line. But knowing what our budget situation is, I don't know if the budget would allow for that. I do give kudos to those businesses that have been able to sustain themselves through COVID. It has devastated a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals, a lot of property owners within the city also. So I know there is a need. Again, I don't have a specific solution to that problem. I know it is a problem. I know we have businesses that are suffering. And if someone has a suggestion for council, I would be more than willing to listen to that and possibly bring it to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan, we'll turn it over to you.
So the city council has powers outside of simply funding or not funding particular initiatives, right? I remember several years ago having the opportunity to sit on the Downtown Advisory Committee. And I think that there is an opportunity to develop a committee to explore exactly what our COVID redevelopment structure needs to be. One of the key underpinnings that I think needs to be there in that conversation is a specific focus towards Black businesses and up and coming Black entrepreneurs in our community. I was really excited to learn on the Neighborhood Alliance meeting a few days ago that all of the candidates here attended and spoke at, that the Carbondale Chamber of Commerce is already trending that direction, but the Chamber of Commerce can't and shouldn't go it alone, and the city should have a vested interest in the actual development and incubation of small businesses, but again, not just small businesses, but businesses for folks that have been traditionally excluded from our systems of commerce in that town, and specifically that is our Black residents.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. This is for Jeff Doherty and Nick Smalligo. What is your plan to help bring new business to the area and utilize the vacant business spaces in Carbondale? So we'll start with you, Jeff Doherty.
Could you repeat that question?
Absolutely. What is your plan to help bring new businesses to the area and utilize the vacant business spaces in Carbondale?
Well, the city has an economic development office, and I have urged and proposed since I've been on the city council that the city needs to invest more in economic development efforts. In 1990, the city was funding a private organization $163,000 a year, and that's more than what we're spending right now on economic development efforts. You need to make an investment financially. You also need to work with other organizations. I mentioned the Southern Illinois Airport earlier. That's a growth center. They have projects going on right now that's going to bring in a couple hundred jobs. And one of the existing businesses is going to expand. So we need to be focusing in on where there's opportunities. Also, in the past, we relied very heavily on sales tax. And so making an investment in economic development efforts to attract the retail sector to replace some of the larger stores that we have lost in the past year. Also, I believe in working regionally. There's some different initiatives being started on a regional basis that we can participate in and help bring economic development, not only in Carbondale, but our immediate area that will create jobs for all of our citizens.
Thank you very much. We'll go to you, Nick.
Yeah, so this phrase economic development is really problematic in terms of what people are thinking about it. There's a certain model of economic development, which Mr. Doherty just referred to, which is like find a way to attract outside investment to create jobs, no matter what those jobs are. First of all, especially in the realm of retail, like Amazon has demolished that. We are in a situation, that's the first point, right? That the basis of the economy has changed in such a way that that model of economic development is outdated. Second, we don't just want jobs, right? Jobs can be really, really crappy. They can be harmful. Fracking is a job. Working at fast food, no disrespect to people that are doing it, but that's not the kind of jobs that we want. That's not the kinds of jobs with dignity that people deserve here. And we have an opportunity to build a different model of economic development here. And me and others involved with the Carbondale Spring have worked on actually articulating this development, which we call a resilient regional economy. The core principle of this would be creating democratically operated worker cooperatives. And we want the city, as well as lending partners that we've partnered with nationally, to develop and fund a network of worker-owned cooperatives that would supply our anchor institutions of SIU and the university. Again, there's much more to say about that, but just know that we don't need to settle for just attracting jobs. And there are non-extractive lending corporations that we've developed relationships with that we would like the city to get in on, so that we can start creating worker-owned cooperatives with an eye toward supporting specifically people who have been traditionally marginalized in business ownership and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question is for Melvin Pepper Holder and Ginger Rye Sanders. There were several questions in the chat about the city's relationship with Southern Illinois University. As a council member, what ideas or strategies do you bring to the table in regard to working with the university and moving the city forward? We'll start with you, Pepper.
Well, something that I did a few years ago with Senator Simon, I went to his office and I spoke to him about helping me record the history of Black people in Southern Illinois, those who have expanded out of Southern Illinois to other parts of the world. And so finally, this here took place a couple of years ago. This program is called Reclaiming the African American Heritage of Southern Illinois Project. With that, anyone is, and I urge you, please, to contact the SIU library, and whatever pictures, history, papers, things that you, dissertations, whatever, to be there to where we can have this reservoir of information that has not been stored properly or gathered properly, and still is a new baby just crawling. We need help to get this project really off to the community. With that, the whole thing is to understand the history. It's what I was talking about with Jeff Grubbs, about understanding the history of where we've been, where we are, and where we need to go. And those things can come through the leadership of the citizens on the council to give to the university for their assistance in commissions giving input. So we have too much talent to waste here, and we got too many problems to settle here. And we need to get busy because we don't have a long time to be here. Paul Simon wrote, "You and I are on this planet but a short time. Let us seize this time and opportunity to build a better tomorrow so that generations come to look back upon us and say, these were people of uncommon compassion and vision and courage." I quote Senator Paul Simon, who I had many conversations with.
Thank you, Pepper. Ginger Rye Sanders, same question for you about what are your ideas or strategies to work with the university and move the city forward? And you will have to unmute.
Unmute, I tell you. The city of Carbondale has a golden resource in Southern Illinois University. One of the things that I would do is to get together a coalition of individuals that at the criminal justice department and psychology department and Black history, and bring all of these resources together and put people, staff people that would have a knowledge about building relationships and dealing with the concerns that we have in Carbondale. There are so many concerns that we do have. We need mental health courts. There are so many individuals and our citizens are being arrested and they have mental health problems. But there is no mental health court to deal with the situation once they get there. Then we need, in addition to that, drug courts. A lot of arrests because people are addicted to drugs and there's no drug court, nowhere to place them, nowhere to help them. And we need to be more proactive in doing those kinds of things. And those resources at Southern Illinois University will help us establish that. The next thing that I would like to do with SIU, there used to be a program where the community could go and attend classes and sit in classes at SIU, and they called it community elective classes that community people could sit in on. And it caused a relationship with the community. We have lost all of those things. We need to get busy at tapping into the resources that we have to make life better for the citizens of Carbondale that live here today and those who will live here on tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, this last question is for Jessica Bradshaw, and it also is coming from the chat about the city's budget. So the question is, what will you do to free up more revenue and give the city more financial flexibility to invest in needed social programs?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been jotting down all these things and wasn't prepared for that one, but I think that one thing we need to develop is the new business of cannabis, both, you know, the places like Consume, as well as before the pandemic, we were hoping to get more growers, as well as like the whole from growing to purchasing, the whole gambit. So I'm hoping that that'll still be in progress. It might be slowed down because, you know, everyone's working from home, but there's some things that you can't do from home. So I'm hoping that that'll still be happening, and I just haven't heard an update in a while. And that will definitely help because that is one thing that we can tax. And that is like alcohol. That is one thing that has not slowed down. The sales have not slowed down throughout the pandemic. Another thing that I jotted down regarding COVID recovery is the city did help and could do more in terms of finding state and federal grants and support, both in terms of for our businesses as well as for us, and advocating at the state and federal level for COVID recovery and business recovery.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to closing remarks, but I just wanted to make a point that there was a lot of questions that we got submitted beforehand and questions that we had arranged, and a lot of really great questions in the chat. Some of them were related to like housing ordinances and diversity and the city of Carbondale government, and lots of questions like that. So I just want to bring it back to the beginning where a lot of candidates said that they were available to talk. So if you want to contact them and learn more about their platform, I would encourage you to do so. But we'll go ahead and turn it over to Chastity for closing remarks.
All right, everybody, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks. And we'll go ahead and go in alphabetical order again. So Jessica Bradshaw, you are first.
Okay. I have jotted down some things. I just wanted to, especially in that last bit, I think that one thing that we can prepare for, I was thinking 4 years ago when I ran for reelection, we were in such a different place. It was 2017, and we were preparing for the solar eclipse. And we have another one of those in a few years. And I think that we could position Carbondale as this, again, crossroads of America, whatever, it's kind of corny, but we could use it. As some others have said, we are this great location. We have all the water resources, greenery. We have a lot of great resources here. We're in the middle of, Chicago, Memphis, St. Louis. We're not too far from any of these great cities. I think that could help us. Another thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention earlier was with the cannabis recovery bill. I forget exactly what it's called, but there is support specifically for those who were harmed by the war on drugs. And that was supposed to go towards helping, low income minority folks mostly. I don't know where that came from, where that is going with the state. And with poverty and economic development, I agree with a lot of what Nick said. We don't need just jobs. We need good paying jobs. Even working at SIU, I am just barely making above minimum wage when I started, I should say, as a civil service person. So I think that we don't just need, jobs. We need good jobs. We need to work on sustainable economic development, get back to what that word originally meant. And I will put my contact information in the comments, and just wanted to thank everyone for organizing this again, and everyone for attending. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Nathan Colombo, and you have 2 minutes.
This is an opportunity for me personally to utilize a life's worth of relationships that I've been blessed to develop in a short time on this earth, but an opportunity even more so to develop the new relationships that are going to continue to make Carbondale aspire to be the place that we all have, a place to exist comfortably and with purpose. Public engagement is where I find my purpose as Nathan. And I want to be able to share that with you. I want to be able to share that with you knowing that whether you're in the room or on the call or simply at home thinking about what needs to happen in this town, that I will be there caring and wanting to act on exactly what your concerns are. I may not always agree with you. There may not always be that eye-to-eye connection, but that doesn't mean that we can't engage one another and find the action that is going to sustain this town for generations to come, as I've been blessed again to have generations before me that have allowed me to even be here in this space. I will have my full website available for review at nathancolombo.com. Currently, there is just a minor amount of text, so there will be videos here shortly that will provide more in-depth explanations as to what I see as our opportunities, both in the near and long-term future. And I would appreciate your vote on April 6th. I am number 2 on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Luke, your screen is now black, so we can't see the timer. It's like fading in and out. All right, thank you. Next up, we have Jeff Doherty.
Thank you. I want to thank the Southern Illinois Unity Coalition and the Carbondale Public Library for hosting this candidates forum. I also want to commend and thank the other candidates for City Council for offering your services to the Carbondale community. As a current member of the City Council, I'm part of an effective policymaking team comprised of the mayor and 6 council members that works well together for the betterment of the Carbondale community. During the next 4 years, I will continue to protect and enhance our neighborhoods and encourage home ownership through programs such as our first-time homebuyers assistance program and the proposed neighborhood tax increment financing districts. I will continue to address the tax burden on property owners, residents, and businesses by maintaining our current tax levies and investing in economic development to increase our property tax base. We'll work to provide assistance to our small businesses in their recovery from the pandemic. I will support the revitalization efforts, the continued efforts of downtown Carbondale. And I will ensure the city operates in a physically responsible fashion while providing quality services to the citizens of Carbondale. I will continue working with the Carbondale Park District to provide the best parks and recreational facilities available for our community. And I will work to make Carbondale a livable community and promote sustainability. And finally, I will make decisions based on the best interest of all citizens. The current pandemic has created tremendous hardships on our community, our citizens, and our businesses. For Carbondale City government, we are faced with lost tax revenues from the past year and from the near future as we recover and work back toward normal. Tough decisions on city operations will have to be made. Now, more than ever, we need experience and trusted leadership on the City Council, the experience and trusted leadership that I can provide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we will have Carolyn Harvey.
Thank you. I too would like to thank the organizers of this forum, but mainly I'd like to thank all the citizens who tuned in to hear what we have to say. I will start off by saying that the problems that Carbondale that we're facing right now, these problems are not unique to Carbondale. These are things that are going on in every city and every state within our country. If simple solutions like just go talk to some of the professional people at SIU and they have the solution to every problem, if it was that simple, we would have done it. But it's not that simple. Sure, SIU has professionals who can help and give suggestions, but we are the people who live in Carbondale. We make decisions based on what's going to affect you and me as a citizen. When I vote for something for city council, I jokingly say there's never a footnote that says Carolyn Harvey is the exception to this rule. It affects my life just like it affects your life. I ask that you will continue to support me as your city council person. I've tried to, within the past years that I've been on council, I've tried to make decisions that were the right thing for all of the citizens of Carbondale. I'm more than willing to listen again to what anyone has to say. My phone number again is 618-303-1973. Please feel free to contact me at any time. I am also a member of the Carbondale Chamber of Commerce, and I do sit on the Minority Business Council. I'm very supportive of minority businesses, but also of all businesses that are within our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Melvin Pepperholder.
Well, I know that we have two major interstates, that's 57 and 55. We have two major railroads. We have two major waterways. We have so much talent and so much resources within the Carbondale area that this is how the Carbondale businesses would grow, more jobs would come when the infrastructure is addressed, and one of the realizations of how to utilize some of the TIF. I feel it's a real shame the TIF was utilized to automobiles and fast food places, where you had a historical place, where you had a major building, major sewer lines, and when you develop the core of something, it then can expand to others. Just, I learned from people. I hate to keep bringing these people's names up, but you may need to look into these people and see their vision of then and who may be still alive today. You had Willie Lawson, who was a protector of Black jobs. You had Lloyd Sumner, Reverend Lloyd Sumner, who was an advocate for the community. You had, I didn't know Ed, but I knew Lillian Adams and Jane Adams' mother. I recommended her for one of the awards. There was President Morris, who was really the person who really catapulted with my dad's ingenuity to a viable, large-size business in this area. And then there's, Paul DeVos. There's so much that could be done if we utilize the directions that they were trying to steer us to. And those things would deal with health, housing, and policing. One of the things that I spoke with about policing is the city was to use this thing, it's called a shot spotter. If a shot goes off in a 3-mile radius of the computer, it indicates exactly where the shot comes from. And then with that, it puts the police on a different frame of not running to, but being nearby of a perimeter to do different things to help the job, will help healing the health of the community, and maybe people wouldn't be shooting or doing things in that nature because they had more opportunity. Just quickly, if you don't mind, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. It's a much longer quote, but that quote is by Frederick Douglass. That's where we are. We got to invest in our children for a better place.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Ginger Rye Sanders.
I got it right this time. Thank you so much for inviting me. I have enjoyed the forum, and it's been very educational and inspirational to me. I just would like to say that, again, that I am a product of Carbondale, Illinois. And I have lived here, and I love Carbondale. And I know that we can do better and we can be better. And I know that the only way that we can do and be is to do and be together. And with that being said, I have been around and I have stood on the shoulders of so many people that have poured into my life, preachers, teachers, and they have fought for concerns and issues that plague the people. And I vow to do the same. And Maya Angelou said something that sticks real close to me: develop ways that you can speak up for yourself and also speak up for others. And sooner or later, you will have the courage to say one day that I am a representative for humankind and for human beings. And so with that being said, I am saying today, I am the representative for Carbondale. Please vote for me on April the 6th. and I will be concerned about your concerns. And when I have a seat at the table, you will have a seat at the table. I will hear you. And if I don't have answers, I will find answers. Someone told me I was a go-getter and a bringer-backer. And so since that was said, I do believe that I am. And I will be a go-getter and a bringer-backer for the issues and concerns of Carbondale, Illinois. Hit me up on my Facebook page. I have a website page, and I have a jingle that just came out today, and I'm excited about it. And I'm excited about this run. And I thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Before I have our last candidate give his closing statement, I want to ask all of the candidates, most of you already have, but if you would please put your contact information in the chat for everyone. Most of you have, but we have a few questions about some of the candidates. So I'm going to introduce Nicholas Smaligo, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for putting this on. This was great. I'm running in order to meet everyone in this town that is moving and organizing and wants to move and organize in the directions that I and many others are working. I would rather meet 50 or 100 new people in this town that are inspired by the direction and the path that we're walking, on the basis of trying to articulate what I mean very seriously, not to water it down or dumb it down. I would rather meet 50 to 100 people interested in organizing than I would get 900 votes based on kind of talking in lofty or vague terms. But if you do choose to elect me, I can promise that I will continue to work on behalf of the community that I'm a part of, and the whole Carbondale community is the community that I'm a part of. And I will investigate to try to get to the truth of the matters that are put in front of me. I think that one of the major problems that we have is that questions and issues kind of pose themselves just as either or questions. We've got to cut this or we've got to do that. And we've lost the thread of the history that we're in. There is a constant repeating sense of amnesia that comes down. And we see it just in this conversation, how so many of the ideas that people are talking about are ideas that were already present, right? The idea of funding the Hayes Center by the city, just for example. These things that happened for so long and then are cut, and then all of a sudden it seems impossible that we would demand something more out of a city. I believe that the moral imperative that we all share today is we have to build the kinds of places that we would want to land should we lose everything. And we have to treat each other as we would like to be treated should we show up in a city with nothing. And so we need to, that requires a whole different vision of politics, one that starts at the bottom and grassroots through deep participation. And that's what I would like to work with you all to create. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all of the candidates for attending. We really appreciate it. And I would also like to thank Carbondale Public Library for hosting this forum for us tonight. We are So Ill Unity Coalition. I would really like to thank my coordinating team, Jennifer Robertson, myself, Ginger Goals, and Brennan Canope. I'm just apologizing. I cannot say her last name. But Ginger, I think Ginger and Brennan did a very great job in taking the questions that were posed and putting them to the candidates. And then I'd also like to thank Luke Heron Titus for being our timer tonight. We encourage everyone to vote. Remember, it was mentioned before, April 6th is our voting day. Early